Welcome to Hearthstone Winery. They are the hosts of the MCC's Walk the Vine event on August 25th, and I'm here with some of the key players at Hearthstone to ask them a little bit about the wine and the unique aspects of the winery. So can you take it from here and tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, well, I'm Jocelyn. And so Hearthstone has some really unique features about it. First is that we're small, we're a real boutique style winery. More importantly, we are 100% estate grown. That's very hard to find now in Paso Robles. So everything that you see here today was grown on our estate vineyard.
That's great. So what wines do we have here in front of us today?
Well, we typically start out with our white wine, the Pearl. That's going to be a Vineyard Roussanne blend. Currently, for the summertime, we produce a rosé, which is very nice also. And then from there, we can move into our red wines. Yeah, well, you know, the really interesting thing about Paso Robles is the amount of microclimates that we see here in Paso Robles. What can be grown in one location can't necessarily be grown in another one. So saying that we have an identity really for Zinfandel might not be necessarily true, because you can find a fabulous Zen, you can find these incredible Rhone wines that are doing very well right now. But there are some really spectacular Pinot Noirs that are being produced. Some of these Italian varietals like Barbera, Sangiovese, some of these producers are coming out with spectacular bottles of wine. So rather than say we can be focused on one thing, and this is what really makes Paso Robles special, we can do such a variety of things. And
definitely a lot of different varietals.
Yeah. Paul might have something to add to that also.
Yeah, because you guys actually have a New World Super Tuscan blend.
Yes, we do.
So tell me what that is exactly.
Well, actually, I look at a Super Tuscan wine as being from Italy, Sangiovese based with Cab Franc, or Merlot, all three, one or two of the others, and that's a Super Tuscan wine. I call it a New World Super Tuscan, or they have come out with it now, is because they I add Syrah to it. So
and that's not typically found in the old
right,
world
exactly. That's and I think a lot of other wineries, even over in Europe, are starting to add Syrah to their wines.
So the New World really is influenced in the old winemaking techniques. Wow. I have just had a sip of that Cab, and I think it's a perfect segue into talking about tannins. A lot of people, you hear tannins bandied about in wine talk, but some novices don't really know what that is. What would you say to a novice that they need to know about tannins?
Well, to start, the big difference that most people don't realize is that tannins help a wine age. But there are tannins, and then there's acidity. So you can just taste a wine and you think of acidity more like that puckering sensation that you get from a lemon, where tannins I think of more like oversteeped tea. You might actually, if you rub your tongue on the back of your teeth, get some grit in there, some particles almost, and it's going to be just like that oversteeped tea sensation. So just from a tasting standpoint, that's the best way to tell from there. And then in terms of aging a wine,
yeah, tannins will let a wine age much longer. Some are subtle tannins, some can be kind of harsh tannins. I think our tannins on our wines are kind of medium. I would not say they're really, except for maybe the Cabernet has some. But there's different tannins, like silky tannins. There's just a broad range, and sometimes you can almost feel like you get a sweetness off from the oak, especially in new oak barrels.
And what's going on with this Cab in particular with its tannins? Because you told me earlier that it would age really well. So that's part of the tannin structure with that Cab?
Yes. And tannins are derived from stems, seeds, and oak. Okay. So yes, so that's.
Yeah, and of course over time tannins will subside. So if you're drinking a wine now and it's really tannic, 10 years from now, that's not necessarily going to be the case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so they will soften over time.
Okay. Not only do your wines have good tannin structures, you guys also take great care with your grapes. They're hand-picked. and then they're hand sorted. So what goes into deciding what is the grape that you're going to use with your wines?
Well, typically in the vineyard, we usually look to our winemaker to kind of make the decisions, when we want to pick. We typically look at the bricks and, what the sugar levels are. And then we'll decide to harvest. And some things we harvest sooner, and then some things we'll decide, because we do everything by hand, we'll decide to do, maybe multiple harvests and do half the lot now and then do half the lot a week from now. So once Paul gets it, he'll do a sorting, and we sort by hand as well, just so that way we can make sure that the quality of the wine is continually taken into consideration.
Right, because when we hand sort, we're looking for sometimes, not normally, but sometimes you may have a little mold, you may have raisoning, especially in Zinfandel, and I was explaining this to Teresa earlier, that when we hand sort, if a cluster has half the side roughly has raisins on it, it gets thrown out. Because what happens is, if there's a lot of raisins, and I notice this a lot with Zinfandel, that when you pick Zinfandel, for example, at 25 bricks, if you were just to crush it and a lot of raisins went into the must, after a couple days it soaks up. So now your bricks are now 28 or 29. It's very notorious for Zinfandel. And then that's when you start getting a lot of these overripe flavors, because what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it.
Right.
Exactly.
So if you throw moldy, raisiny fruit in there, so we try to sort it all out. And most of our fruit always looks good. But once in a while, Mother Nature dictates sometimes how we're going to do things. So, but hand sorting is really a good way to do things. You would never be able to do it, probably not as much in large wineries where 10, 15,000 tons.
It's just too much effort to
Oh,
go into
yeah,
all that
yeah. It's
fruit.
very time consuming. It could take an hour just to sort through a ton of fruit.
All right. So what is your favorite Hearthstone wine?
I gotta go for the season with the Grenache Rosé. It's got some grapefruit, it has some florals. It's just great for the summertime. You kind of drift towards more salad and more light style foods, and I think this is a great one to just kind of stand by it. It doesn't overpower it, just kind of adds and enhances.
Just sitting on a porch on a lovely Paso afternoon.
Exactly.
Sipping on some rosé.
Yeah.